Hey everybody, what follows is the complete supercut of my Smashing Pumpkins album reviews, including Pisces Iscariot, The Aeroplane Flies High, and Zwan Mary Star of the Sea, right on through to their most recent album, Aghori Mori Mei. I'm working on a video where I provide the definitive ranking of these albums as well, so make sure to subscribe to this channel so you know when that video comes out. Let's chat about all the Smashing Pumpkins albums in the comments below. Overrated, underrated choices, all the stuff I got horribly wrong. I want to hear from you. Alright. Enjoy. 1 Minute Review, Gish by Smashing Pumpkins. Smashing Pumpkins' debut LP is an underground classic. Though overshadowed by Siamese Dream, it ranks up there with the likes of Murmur, Boy, and numerous other debuts that got some attention, but were essentially forgotten in the wake of what would come later. It's chock full of good stuff, but it stands out in my mind as this monolith. Where the Pumpkins would make a name for themselves via stylistic diversity on later records, Gish boldly proclaims, I am one. The absolute highlight is the impossibly gorgeous Rhinoceros, one of the best tracks to emerge from the alternative era. It's a slice of psychedelia done right, all dream-dazed and in love with the vibe. Honestly, I wish we'd gotten more records from this era, because that early Pumpkin sound was a total game changer, never mind the competition. Hard to miss with any of these tracks. I gush for Gish. It gets an A from me. 1 Minute Review, Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. In 1993, I was of the age for Siamese Dream to rule my world, and though I did own a copy, for some reason I never really got into it. I guess I was too busy aligning my fight with the hipster angels in the local indie scene, and to be honest, Today and Disarm were just a bit overplayed on radio and MTV. However, Billy Corgan was, and still is, a genius, and Siamese Dream is on the short list of not only the greatest 90s albums, but also the greatest rock albums of all time. It's like Boston and Daydream Nation had a love child, and it's the deep cuts that cut the deepest. Hummer, Soma, Geek USA, they aren't the hits, but you want to hear them live even more than the singles. The list goes on. It's a seamless, inimitable mind surf through one weirdo's rock and roll fantasy coming true. Oh yeah, and Cherub Rock is one of the greatest album openers of all time, 100% no doubt. Siamese Dream exists on its own plane of greatness. It's absolutely an A+ from me. 1 Minute Review, Pisces Iscariot by Smashing Pumpkins. Pisces dropped right as the Pumpkins hit the Siamese peak. For some reason, I remember this being the one that all the kids got their hands on. And as with Siamese Dream, I didn't care all that much, especially given that the radio single Landslide seemed to accentuate that aspect of the Pumpkins, namely Billy's high-pitched and nasally whine, that really annoyed the heck out of me. Looking back, what once could have been viewed as a toss-off for a cash grab is, in reality, one of the best odds and sods collections of all time and an outstanding bookend to the early Pumpkins era. Imagine having tracks like Starla or Frail and Bedazzled just sitting there, unused, or gorgeous little acoustic dream pop ditties like Soothe or Obscured available for whatever. Of course, the reissues of the early records just further emphasized that Corgan had plenty of great tracks lying around waiting to be sequenced and foisted upon his growing legion of angst-ridden disciples. Siamese Dream proved Corgan's genius. Pisces Iscariot proved Corgan's superhuman creative powers. It gets an A from me. 1 Minute Review, Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness by Smashing Pumpkins. I used to think Corgan lost the dream grunge plot with Mellon Collie. It didn't help that Bullet with Butterfly Wings felt like a caricature of Nirvana. But that was then. I'm happy to say that I was wrong about Mellon Collie and Corgan as well. It's been a slow process for me, but with the perspective of many years of hindsight and probably some nostalgia, I can totally appreciate the absurdly ambitious genius of Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness. When I listen now, I'm astounded by the quality of the songs. While I think it could have been a few tracks shorter towards the end, I'm not going to complain because by around track 20, why not? Most of the tracks are great, and there are more than a handful of classics. The bottom line is, I've realized you have to surrender to the epic journey of it all. This is a song cycle about massively overwrought teenage emotions, and it's incredibly well done. So yeah, I finally arrived where many of you already are. Mellon Collie is indeed a total classic, and may even be the ultimate 90s album. It gets an A+ from me. 1 Minute Review, The Aeroplane Flies High by Smashing Pumpkins. Does Corgan's post-Mellon Collie Megaflex hold up? The Bullet EP features some nice covers and a solid Ehud deep cut. The 1979 EP features 5 B-sides that could have been solid additions to any album, with a neo-psychedelic sound similar to earlier tracks like Soma and Rhinoceros, especially Set the Rated Jerry. What a groove. The Zero EP features hard rockers as well as the intriguing Pasticcio medley, which at 23 minutes is a flex in and of itself, featuring short snippets of riffs from unreleased tracks. The Tonight Tonight EP features a lot of softer acoustic numbers that expand on the vibe of early versions of Tonight itself. Finally, the 33 EP features a hodgepodge of nifty leftovers. that wouldn't have been at home anywhere else, but fit right in with this glorious mess. The title track in particular is a pretty great bit of doom rock, the way only Corgan can do it. It's pretty cool how each of the EPs is like a further deep dive into the ideas of the single it supports. I dig Aeroplane. It gets an A from me. 1 minute review, Adore by Smashing Pumpkins. For the Pumpkins, the cultural triumph of 1979 begat the existential crisis of 1997, and they were faced with replacing the irreplaceable Jimmy Chamberlin. Adore then was Corgan's biggest artistic challenge yet. How to proceed without the drummer that was almost as crucial to the band's sound as himself. It seems that he took the direction from 1979 and went full on into early 80s Cure vibe here. As a result, they sound more subdued, more contemplative, more like they're searching for the way forward after owning the 90s thus far. And while Adore doesn't hit home runs like 1979 or Tonight Tonight, Ava Adore has proven one of the Pumpkins' most enduring tracks. Adore is the album that the real fans can look back at and say, this deserves more credit. While Chamberlain eventually returned to the Pumpkins, Adore proved Corgan could make his music work no matter what, and he didn't have to be held to any one style or any one lineup. The first 3 tracks were all great, and my favorite deep cut is Apples and Oranges. Adore gets a B+ from me. 1 minute review, Machina, The Machines of God by Smashing Pumpkins. Machina saw the return of Jimmy Chamberlin, and I think that's the key to its success. Corgan sounds invigorated and inspired, ready to rock right out of the gate, and it almost seems like his guiding principle of production was lots of drums and make them heavy. I only recently gave serious attention to the Machina era and have to say, I love it, every last bit. This is a doomy, gloomy, metal electronica record, disintegration caliber cyberpunk goth and roll, one that deserves way more appreciation than it tends to get in the Pumpkins' discography. Tracks I really dig include The Everlasting Gaze, Raindrops and Sun Showers, Stand Inside Your Love, Try This Time, and I'd better stop because I'm just going to list all 15 tracks if I don't. While none of the tracks were ready to own the radio, the Pumpkins' original lineup went out on a high note and left a secret classic for their biggest fans to rediscover and puzzle over for years to come. Machina, however you want to say it, it gets an A from me. 1 minute review, Machina 2, The Friends and Enemies of Modern Music by Smashing Pumpkins. Imagine making one of the best albums of your career and then holding it back as an extremely limited edition vinyl-only release, only to have it completely fade into obscurity when your band breaks up. That's Machina 2, closing the case that Billy Corgan is indeed a madman in the best sense of the word. Machina 2 was the glammy goth punk blaze of glory farewell from the original Smashing Pumpkins. It made it clear that Corgan was indwelling his own imaginary universe and inviting us to be part of it. To be sure, I have no idea how any of the mythology relates, but what's important is that Billy seems to, and it helps him make undeniably awesome tunes. I sought this out because I love Machina 1, and I'm very glad I did. Highlights for me are Glass, Cash Car Star, Real Love, Let Me Give the World to You, In My Body, and Atom Bomb. And the 3 EPs are pretty swell too. I give Machina 2 an A. 1 minute review, Mary Star of the Sea by Zwan. I get that Mary Star of the Sea isn't technically or officially a Smashing Pumpkins record, but spiritually and artistically it really is, right? I mean, the fact that it includes Jimmy Chamberlin on drums means it features more of the original Pumpkins lineup than later official Smashing Pumpkins records like Oceania and Monuments to an Elegy. Furthermore, it sounds like a Smashing Pumpkins record, the most like the Gish Siamese Dream era that Corgan has sounded since then. So I'm treating it like one, and I'm here to declare that Zwan is a total masterpiece. From start to finish, the songs are urgent, melodic, passionate, and crunchy with glorious layered guitars. Each one is a lean machine of joyful abandon unlike anything before or after. Many of these tracks really belong amongst the best of the Corgan canon. Highlights for me are Lyric, Settle Down, Honestly, El Sol, Of a Broken Heart, Endless Summer, and that epic title track. Here's hoping we get a deluxe edition one day. Mary Star of the Sea is a masterpiece and gets an A+ from me. 1 minute review, Zeitgeist by Smashing Pumpkins. From Gish through Zwan, Billy Corgan strung together an unparalleled run of absolutely classic alternative rock and roll albums. However, Zeitgeist put an end to that unbeaten streak. From start to finish, it's all so mid. When you compare what came before and after, the grooving grace of Zwan and the prog majesty of the Tiergarten era, Zeitgeist stands out like a sore thumb, a monolith of mediocrity. It goes perfectly with that What Was He Thinking album cover. Only the track Never Lost comes across as somewhat memorable, pointing to the future sound of Oceania. I'm sure this hasn't shown up on streaming services because of obscure legal reasons, but honestly, I wonder if Billy would prefer to just pretend like it didn't exist. Zeitgeist gets a C- from me. 1 minute review, Oceania by Smashing Pumpkins. The centerpiece of the Tiergarten era is a masterpiece of prog rock. Corgan is the only original pumpkin here, but the other players are so strong that you don't really notice the difference, and that's not meant as disrespect to Iha, Ritsky, or Chamberlain. There's a grand artistic vision here, a sense of entitled abandon, a push for high concept that only someone of Corgan's musical stature could pull off. Oceania was the artistic statement that Corgan needed to make 20-plus years into his career, his proclamation that he still had it. Particular favorites are Quasar, which blazes like a wall of fire, the Celestials, which would have been at home on Mellon Collie, the Chimera, which would have been at home on Siamese Dream, and Pale Horse, the most distinctively awesome pumpkin song since 2000. There's just a marvelous variety of sonic textures here, which is a key quality that made early pumpkins great, but was missing from Zeitgeist. I still may not know what Corgan's mythology is all about, but I don't need to. Oceania is just great prog rock. It gets an A from me. 1 Minute Review: Monuments to an Elegy by Smashing Pumpkins. Oceania was a glorious return to form and a promising step forward, the crown jewel of the Tiergarten era. However, as its title implies, Monuments to an Elegy seems more interested in putting an end to that era than building on it. While it's a solid enough record in its own right, it's just too short. Where Oceania was expansive, vast, and varied, Monuments seems to be in a hurried rush to the end of the line. Perhaps Billy was tempted to put the Pumpkins completely behind him at this point. All in all, Monuments is a fine collection of solid tracks. I do enjoy it. I just wish it would slow down and vibe out a bit so I could enjoy it more. Highlights are Being Beige, Run to Me, Monuments, and Dorian. Monuments to an Elegy gets a B from me. 1 Minute Review: Shiny and Oh So Bright Volume 1 LP, No Past, No Future, No Sun by Smashing Pumpkins. Be confused. Be very confused. After all, Corgan himself seems confused as to just what was going on with Shiny and Oh So Bright. Is it a new beginning? A first step in reforming the original Pumpkins lineup? A big comeback? Is it even an album? And what is going on with that cover? I guess what really matters is the songs themselves, and for that matter, they aren't bad, but like Monuments, this one just kind of flashes by without really planting any flags in the memory or imagination. Not sure if we'll ever see a Volume 2 or beyond in this series, but I'm not going to hold my breath at this point. Shiny gets a B- from me. 1 Minute Review: Seer by Smashing Pumpkins. Seer feels like the culmination of the Monuments' Shiny arc. While that kind of synth rock sound ain't really the reason I love the Pumpkins, Corgan's always better when he's not doing things by half measures. And at 20 tracks, this is essentially a double album. A self-indulgent, hyper-conceptual, intergalactic journey at ludicrous speed. Even though I didn't love it on my first listen, the more I do, the more I find melodies and layers and other things to enjoy. Plus, it's run through with some weird occult concept, and of course that makes for better prog rock. I won't say Seer is a masterpiece or anything, but I do think it's a grower and sports many solid cuts, particularly opener Color of Your Love. I'm not sure what visions the Seer Corgan beheld to make the Pumpkins' 11th album, but regardless, I give Seer a B+. 1 Minute Review: Autumn by Smashing Pumpkins. At 20 tracks, Seer seemed to give Mellon Collie a run for the most epic of all Smashing Pumpkins albums. Not to be outdone, Corgan turned around Autumn 2 years later, and what we have is a culmination of all the styles Corgan has explored since reforming the Pumpkins in 2007. I've spoken about Autumn a few times already on this channel, and now in 2024, I've accepted that it's pretty darn good. The Pumpkins are at their best when they are at their most insanely ambitious, and it's hard to argue that that's exactly what we're getting with Autumn, which at 33 tracks outdoes Mellon Collie in sheer track volume. Still, it's no Mellon Collie, nor is it a Machina, but it is a heck of a triple album, and undoubtedly a journey I find myself enjoying more with each new listen. So much so that I do kind of want to dig up all the commentary that would help me understand the story Corgan is actually telling. At this point, I want nothing but high-concept double albums from Smashing Pumpkins until Kingdom Comes. Autumn gets an A- from me. 1 Minute Review: Aghori Mori Mei by Smashing Pumpkins. From what I've read, Corgan considers Aghori a straightforward guitar rock record, even saying it was very much like the Siamese Dream Mellon Collie version of the band. On one level, that's true. This is a very heavy record, reminding me at times of tracks like Tales of a Scorched Earth, XYU, or even Geek USA. And yet, the performances lack that special thing, the Paisley Pop's psychedelic dreamscape timbre that set them above the rest in the early 90s alternative scene. Don't get me wrong, Aghori is a fine record, and it's particularly nice to hear Jimmy really unleashed again. But what this record boasts in heaviness, it lacks in early Pumpkins magic. Still, I'm happy that 3/4 of the original Pumpkins are making music together again, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. Highlights for me include Eden, Go With the Fall, and More Now. I give Aghori Mori Mei a B.